Button here. We'll be in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we are. Welcome back, Dennis, Mr. Williams.
Oh, just call me Dennis.
Dennis, perfect. It reminds me of one of my favorite mentors, Dr. Grubb. He'd like me making a commentary on this. He's a professor at the UD, or he was a professor at UD. He's probably retired now. A black psychology professor. Um, and uh, he's one of my mentor friends back in the days when I used to live in Dubuque, Iowa. And I mean, he earned his titles, Professor Dr. Grubb. And he said, "Just call me Henry." And I always found that a level of humility, a level of security within himself, a level of comfortability, and also a level of what do you want to call it? Hospitality ish type of friendly, show yourself friendly ish. Like he didn't have to. Like, he's an older gentleman. He titled to his title, but there's something about that made his presence welcoming
Well,
to other people.
that's the only thing that's on my birth certificate.
Is that right?
Yeah,
For real?
doesn't say MBA, just says
Oh,
Dennis
right.
Jr. Right?
Right.
That's
Yeah. But people get caught up in that stuff, man. People, especially in the era, especially sometimes people would call me doctor, even in my profession. I'm not a doctor. I don't have my doctor's degree, but it feels good to be called that every now and then, just because sometimes we're out here and people don't respect you like they should, So sometimes it's nice to get that honor, but I definitely can appreciate the level of humility and humanity in someone just telling me, just call me by my first name. I don't know. That's what that reminds me of. Anyways, we are here, second interview. Welcome back. You made it. You made it back to the second interview, right?
Thank you.
Like it's a privilege.
Yes,
More
it
of a
is.
privilege on my end. I appreciate you taking the time out. The last time we talked about some of the things that you were doing, particularly as it relates to your financial program or your financial software. I believe it was financial software.
Mhm.
Um, how's that going?
It's continuing to pick up. I'm expanding it to include businesses as well.
Mhm.
Probably the biggest reason why is that for a business owner, they're naturally focused on their cash flow and where their money goes. Frequently with individuals, a matter of fact, rarely do I run across individuals who actually know where their money is going,
Mhm.
actually go through the process of defining that their money is in fact going to where they want it to go so that they can achieve the things in life that are most important to them.
Just for review, just tell the audience, whoever's watching this, what you do again, and what your services that you provide are.
Okay. So probably the simplest way of putting it is that, I kind of call it cash flow engineering, where we're taking control of how we spend our money and when we spend our money.
Mhm.
And the ultimate outcome of this engineering process is being able to pay the bank less interest, that in turn enables me to pay off any debt in 1/3 to half the time without changing my spending or touching my cash.
And who's the target audience for your program or your software?
Honestly, the people who is a target for is, number one, people that are looking at wanting to build a financial legacy.
Okay.
Second, that they're teachable. And then third, they understand that it's a journey. There's no magic pill overnight. But if you just keep doing the same thing over, the power of compounding kicks in. And I would add that's true for our, what it takes to be healthy, what it takes to raise our kids. It's the same formula. So it's those folks who understand that, embrace it, so that they can take on something new that they otherwise don't know. And so that includes consumers, it includes business owners, it can include investors, because even as a strategy, you can use this to reduce your cost of borrowing in order to build wealth.
Do you have to have? Do you have to own a home? Do you have to have a certain credit score? Do you have to have a certain income level?
You don't. No, you don't have to have a particular income level. You do need to make sure that you are your expenses are at least, after you pay all your bills, you have at least $100 left.
Mhm.
You are going to need to have a credit score. I'll just simply say at a minimum 680. And I say that because frequently, if you have a higher credit score, that basically demonstrates that you're on the path of understanding how to effectively manage debt and manage your finances.
It seems like you're also targeting individuals who have a certain amount of unresolved debt out there in their portfolio. That's
No, not really. And so let me explain why. This is a great strategy. I mean, I had a business owner approach me about using this strategy, and they were buying another business.
okay.
I mean, again, that's what I mean by strategic.
Okay.
Um, and so it's really looking at it from the perspective of, again, wanting to put the habits in place, enabling us to take control of where our cash is going, and reduce the interest we pay the bank.
Okay. Is this just for clarity? In my head, this is a general program and approach in combination with software, correct?
So let's clarify the software part. So the software part enables somebody to plug in their numbers and see what's possible.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when people see what's possible, the results kind of blow their mind. And that's where I have kind of been forced to set up a process of coaching people through the process so that they develop this new habit of how they manage their cash.
But you've invested a lot of your time and resources into the software itself, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
No doubt about it. A
um,
pretty penny.
so this will be a combination of the use of software and also support from you or
Yep.
your supportive staff, correct?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. How much does something like that cost an individual?
So, if we're talking about an individual and they decide that they want to just look at my software, they can go on to the Apple Store,
Okay.
and it's called Cash Map. It's all one word: Cash Map Empowering Budgeting.
Okay.
You can download it for free, actually, but to get the detailed solutions in which it tells you, here's how quickly you can pay off the debt. Here's how much your savings will grow
Mm.
over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, as far as I know, it's the only consumer-based software in which somebody can put in their numbers and create all kinds of scenarios and then see what it's going to do for them before they do it.
Okay.
And so the solutions are complete, but what I find is this concept, the principle is based on really two things: the timing that we do things, and second, keeping our money working for us rather than sitting in a checking account idle, allowing the banks to use our cash to their benefit.
Okay. So is this
And
relatively free software? Is this free software?
okay, so yeah, you can download for free. The full solution for 1 month is $30 a month, $86 a quarter, $319 a year, or a one-time purchase of basically $800.
Okay.
Okay. Now, once you have that, now the question becomes, do you need some hand holding so that you make this transition? And that's where the coaching comes in.
Okay.
Okay.
So is the coaching additional on top of the use of the
Yes.
software?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So if somebody was to go through and um, and and I've had a few people who says, "Oh, the app has all the information. Great." But what I've learned is the majority of people, just because it's so new, they
Mhm.
they like the hand holding, and that's what we're happy to provide to help build confidence. And so for that element of it, there are probably not probably there are three different pricing tiers. One would be $1,500 to start for setup, and then $350 a month for 11 months. So that comes out to about $5,300. Um, the second option is basically a cash discount of $4,800, and I frequently will space that out over a couple of months. Or third, for people who just really know they need minimal support for a shorter time frame, it's just a straight $4,000.
Okay. What's been the results so far? I mean, what's been the result of the reviews so far with regards to the use of your program?
The reviews have been one of shock that just by being able to make such small changes, they've been able to pay off debts so quickly without touching their cash.
Does your program produce instant results? I mean, like do is there are there these major testimonials where people are
Yes.
saying that absolutely this program is worth the money. It absolutely changes my
Well,
my outcome.
the beauty of it is that people will see the results actually at the end of the first month,
Okay.
right? So it's frequently at the end of the first month, it's not unusual for me to see if I'm talking about, let's just say if we're talking about a mortgage, let's just say at
Mhm.
the end of the first month, it's not unusual at all for somebody to have saved 20, 25, $30,000 in interest at the end of month one.
Okay.
Right. So what do I mean by that? Just to be clear for the listeners, that means at the end of the first month, it's not unusual that we would have shortened the length of the loan by 16 to 20 months. So that even if they don't do anything else with me and they stop at the end of month one, they would have knocked 16, 20, 25 months off the length of that mortgage and saved that kind of money.
Okay. So, sounds interesting and enticing if I have a mortgage. Um, and I want to reduce the amount, and I want to dramatically shift how much I'm paying over time. Okay. Um, you know, you know, just like anybody, I'd imagine people would looking at this information, or let's just interview, and they're going to come with a level of skepticism.
Always.
Um, about
Always.
right, it's like once you've heard one financial presentation, you've heard 1,000 of them, right?
Yeah.
What makes your stuff tried and true, bona fide, legit, worth money, hands down? What is it? What is it about it? What's the special sauce? Without giving out the special recipe
Well,
sauce.
I mean, I think,
Like
well,
you get the
actually,
special sauce without the recipe.
I'm gonna actually just kind of be really upfront and blunt about it. Is number one is you've heard of the phrase "cash is king."
Mhm.
Okay, that means holding on to your cash as long as you can. That means I do not use a debit card at all.
Mm.
Right, because the longer I have my cash, I can put my money to work for me.
Is that one of the philosophies of the program?
Yes.
Okay.
And I actually in the software that I do, and this is part of the coaching, I don't ask anybody to do anything until they can actually see it with their numbers so that they know what it's doing and why.
Mm.
Right. So that there's no and that what I'm really doing is enabling people to build a new skill that they will use the rest of their life, and if they are a family, they will teach it to their kids.
Okay.
Right? So I'm not asking anybody. Well, I want people to trust me, but I want to prove their trust. And the way I prove their trust is creating tools that they can actually see with their own numbers why it works and
Okay.
why they should make the change.
So it's one of those things like you're really part of the huge ask on your end is just getting a seat at the table so that they can see for themselves what your program can do for them, and that
That's
doesn't cost them anything.
right. Exactly. So if somebody wanted to sign up for an informational session in which I totally walk through what the principle is, it doesn't cost them a thing.
Yeah, that sounds like something worth giving you a try. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no risk. There's no downside risk to it at all.
yeah. In the day where money is scarce, we'll talk about that. I think one of the things I want to talk about today with you or ask about is just your thoughts, opinions, wisdom on today's climate of politics, money, and spirituality. Will probably be the category, the era that we're in as it relates to government shutdown, the financial effects of the government shutdown, i.e., the SNAP being eliminated. I mean, pretty much stalled.
Mhm.
Um,
Or
uh,
even SBA loans. I've been talking to a couple of business owners this last few days, and they can't even get their business loans done because of the shutdown.
Yeah, I'm hearing preachers, even over the pulpit, talk about this idea of I think I told you about this. Hopefully, the people on my end will throw up the clip while we're talking about this. Mark Driscoll. It was gut wrenching, disturbing what I observed as a preacher, essentially, shaming the idea of giving to others that don't deserve anything. And I asked myself, like, where did he get this biblical? And this is a popular preacher. I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Driscoll,
I've
but
heard his name.
he's a popular. He went through his own set of controversy. Mega church pastor. I intend on doing some additional research on him, but I've been keeping my eye out there on certain things. He sparked my interest because some of the rhetoric I admire about. I admire someone who stands for truth. And I think that there's an imperfect spectrum of pastors who stand for truth, howbeit disturbing and controversy sometimes. But anyways, one of the controversial things that I saw him talk about is, essentially condemning individuals to say that to say that it's ungodly to give to people who don't earn it. Very much a conservative, you know, philosophy, more conservative than it is even Christian. What are your thoughts on that when you hear something like that? When you hear a preacher say it's ungodly to give to people who don't earn what they get?
So just like my software, and even raising my children and being an executive managing people, there's an underlying theme that is absolutely essential to me, and that is simplicity and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that being said, what do I mean? I'm going to say here right now that the opinion of Dennis Williams has no weight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only going to go based upon what Scripture says.
Hallelujah. Amen to that. Yeah, I like that.
All right. So
Yeah.
that's number one. And then, with that being said, I will cite to you Luke chapter 3. This is John the Baptist,
Mm-hmm.
in which he says, we all know about prepare ye the way of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And he then talks about the coming wrath of God.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, I can turn these rocks into children of Abraham. So don't you think you're somehow special and better than anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
And the people then come to him and say, what should we do? And his answer is most profound over addressing his picture of God's anger. And it's a very simple one. It says, if you have two shirts and you see that somebody else has none, give them a shirt.
Yeah.
He does not talk about them being deserving for the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We can go back to the last sermon or remarks of Moses in that is the book of Deuteronomy, which, by the way, I wrote a book about called Hidden Gems. And one of the things that he says there is, do not be proud about when you become prosperous, that you have done this on your own. But instead, you are to be generous to the poor and the alien among you. And he gives the promise that if you are generous, there'll be no poor among you. We can also look at, well, I'll ask you this question. Yeah, there you go. There you go. What do we know Sodom and Gomorrah for?
Wickedness of their excessive lasciviousness of sin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what's said. However, in chapter 16 of Ezekiel, verse 49, it says, tells Israel, you are worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. And he then goes on and says, why? Because you didn't take care of the poor and the widows among you.
I got to write that down. I got to go back to that. Where's that at?
Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 49. And if you'd like, there's another verse that I can share with you too, if you'd like to add that. And that's in Jeremiah chapter 22. And I'll open it myself up so I can read it to you just briefly.
Yeah, take your time, brother.
Okay. It says, beginning with verse 3, it says, the Lord proclaims, do what is just and right. Rescue the oppressed from the power of the oppressor. Don't exploit or mistreat the refugee, the orphan, and the widow. Don't spill the blood of the innocent in this place. It says, if you obey this command, then through the gates of this palace will come kings who occupy the throne of David, riding on chariots and horses along with their entourages. But if you ignore these words, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that this palace will become a ruin. Of course, that's what happened. Then it goes on and says, now I'm down to verse, I'll start with verse 13. It says, how terrible for Jehoiakim, who builds his house with corruption and his upper chambers with injustice, working his countrymen for nothing. That sounds familiar right now. Refusing to give them their wages. He says, I'll build myself a grand palace with huge upper chambers, ornate windows, cedar paneling, and a rich red decor. And then he asks the question, is this what makes you a king? Having more cedar than anyone else? Didn't your father eat and drink and still do what was just and right? And then it went well for him. He defended the rights of the poor and the needy. Then it went well. Isn't that what it means to know me, says the Lord? I'll stop there.
Let me lean toward the argument of the strong conservative person that says that it is foolish to give all your money to those who are poor and to help those who are poor. And maybe they cite a verse. Maybe they go into the Bible and they cite the verse, "Don't give your pearls to swine," for instance. Denoting
I would argue
wisdom and giving. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Go ahead. Go ahead. What's your commentary?
Well, Certainly, if they're going to characterize people as swine, that's already a problem.
Yeah.
Because we do have Jesus's words where we are to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Yes, but the term giving is denoting not giving to those that essentially are going to abuse the giving. That there is a wisdom to giving. I mean,
So,
there's argument for that. There's a wisdom to giving. You're not just going to give all your money to.
Exactly, and so from the perspective of being an enabler, so that somebody is not able to develop the skills and to do their best, that's when giving hurts.
Okay.
But we're not living in that kind of age.
You don't think people take advantage of the system?
Say that again?
You don't think people take advantage of the system? You don't think people do not? You don't think people don't? You don't think people don't operate from a space of not doing things to the best of their ability to get what they need out of life?
So I think in that context, let me turn the tables a bit. When I went and got my master's in business, I lived in Hawaii for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the pleasure of working at a trust company. And my colleagues at that point in time, most of them were descendants of the well-to-do or missionaries that had originally come to Hawaii years ago. And what I learned was they weren't any smarter than I was. And they certainly didn't work harder than I was.
Okay.
But they were put in positions that would never be given me because of my color.
Okay.
Without having the expertise, but they were surrounded by people who mentored them so that they could grow into the role.
Okay.
So I would argue that we don't live in a system in which opportunities are equal, and we never have been. But from the perspective of deciding that one person, we're not going to apply the same standard to two different people, then that's where we fall short.
I think I get what you mean, but I mean, are you alluding to the idea that we all have the same abilities and capabilities given the opportunity, and that that the only difference between the haves and the have-nots is that the haves have more opportunity?
I'm simply saying that frequently when we look at the have-nots, we assume that they're automatically undeserving, and we're not applying the same standard frequently to the children of the affluent, in which they get a free pass. So, for example, I'll change the subject and make it a bit more charged.
You're more charged than what it already is about to be? Keep going.
I'm going to use another example. For years, when we looked at who was admitted to the Ivy League schools in this country, they are private schools, and they get to choose whatever rules they want. That's America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was understood that those with money, because they gave a lot, their kids got admitted.
Okay.
Had little to do about whether or not they were the best and the brightest. It was who their daddy was and how much they gave to the endowment fund, right?
I'll go with it. Okay.
Right.
There's always a counter argument to this.
Right. No, nobody complained about it. Everybody accepted it as fact. Until a minority was admitted. And then all of a sudden, somehow, white affirmative action's okay. But now the same rule of letting someone else in, all of a sudden, it's not justice.
Okay. And
I'll stop there.
No, yeah, this goes into an interesting rabbit hole here. In America, do people? mean, the argument of, the difference between haves and have not. Do people earn their right to the American dream, or is it purely off of privilege? And it's not a black and white topic. It's a very much gray area topic, meaning there's more than one scenario happening that's causing wealth or privilege in America. Some people would say I earned this, that nobody gave it to me, that I was just as poor as you were. Nobody gave me anything. I could easily see a white person's commentary coming into this feed and saying, I earned my way. Nobody gave me anything, what do you say to that person?
The response that I would have is that in all of our experiences, there's somebody along the way who decided to spend time that they didn't have to spend, enabling someone to learn. And yes, they were able to build on that with hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so in that respect, opportunity is never equal. And it never will be.
Okay.
It never will be. Sometimes, as Malcolm Gladwell brings out in Outliers, that it just happens to be you're at the right place at the right time in the right environmental conditions, in which a few years later that window's closed.
Okay.
So there's no such thing of quantitatively trying to even things out. It's not going to happen.
All right.
Right.
So,
but I'm going to say back to the spiritual.
Okay.
If we understand that we're loving our neighbor as ourselves, and that way we're willing to invest and pass on what we have learned, enabling somebody else to be able to step up and build up on, they still have to do their part. No doubt about it.
Okay.
But let's not assume that somebody doesn't deserve the help because of where they may be starting. Or on the other side, if you make money and you have the benefits, that somehow you shouldn't be able to take advantage of those benefits either.
Yeah, when you come to this, I almost want to step in the role of somebody like Charlie Kirk. The late Charlie Kirk. It was his name, Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, that was his name. Yeah.
And him coming in and arguing about the two concepts, that we all have the same opportunities in America. That there is no this idea that one group of people has more opportunities than another group of people, or whether it be black, white, or socioeconomic status, that it's all an illusion. That we are all given have the same equal opportunities with regards to public education and the things that are freely given to us, and that some societies, some groups of people, some cultures choose not to advance themselves, and they choose not to take advantage of those opportunities. What do you say to that?
Well, when I used to work in South Carolina, there was a phrase that I came to enjoy every time I heard it. And the phrase is, bless his sweet little heart.
All right. Sound like a slight. It's like one of them slight disses from the mothers on the mother's board, where they kind of low key insult you.
Bless his sweet little heart, because the biggest tragedy of Charlie Kirk's assassination that should not have happened is him being deprived of a broader viewpoint of interaction with people, so that he, in fact, could have a bigger picture of what was going on and the struggles that people go through.
Do you think that? Well, I were on Charlie Kirk here. I like Charlie Kirk, and I don't like Charlie Kirk. I'm not huge on politics. I'm not huge on people's political disposition, but I do love the art of debate. I'm huge. Like I listen to rap battles a lot. I'll listen to political debates more than I will listen to political commercials.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan and connoisseur of the art of social competition, kind of ish. I love hearing spiritual debates, and that's one of the things that takeaways that I loved about listening to Charlie Kirk. Is he just seems so, I just love the ability to go into warfare, into talking about topics and stuff like that. I was like, oh, he did such a great job. That'll give him, whether I'm 100% agreement with his politics or whatever. But anyways, um, you take an individual like Charlie Kirk, which represents a good portion of America.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people who believe that that whatever you have right now, you've earned it. And if you didn't, whatever you don't have, it's because you didn't earn it. And to a certain degree, that's a fair argument.
So again, I'm going to come back to scripture. Jesus gave the parable of the workers, people who needed a job.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave them a job. And then somebody else needed work and they came around noontime. He gave them a job.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the person who came about an hour before the end of the day and he
Mm-hmm.
gave them a job.
Right.
And then what did he do at the end as far as how he paid them all?
He paid them the same, right? Right.
He paid them all the same. And they started to squawk.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And his comment was, did you not get paid what I promised to pay you?
Mm.
So this item of us being given opportunities and then deciding we want to begrudge someone else who has been generous towards someone else, that's not our role.
Mm.
That is not our role. We are asked again, and when Jesus said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and all their mind, all your mind. And then the second one is love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When he said that, he was quoting Leviticus chapter 19. He didn't even come up with it on his own.
Mm.
And so let's get to the core issue of what this means. This means the true mark of conversion is the transformation of the heart in how we treat people. That's the bottom line.
All this sounds good on paper, as I like to say. Everything sounds good on paper.
Yep.
We live in a world where nobody cares about anybody. I've experienced that. I'm pretty sure you've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does to people is it causes them to have a philosophy that this is how the world works as it relates to my effort, and this is how I should treat the world as it relates to other people's effort.
Okay, so I'm going to give you another response. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, Paul says, imitate God like dearly loved children, imitating Christ as your example.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
And so what, I used to be an executive with besides finance, but also HR.
Mm.
And I would frequently hear things that people would say. And I would sometimes ask them, now, based on what you said, if you were to the receiver of what you just said, how would you feel? Every time we open our mouth, we have a choice to make on whether or not the impact of our words are going to be destructive or constructive.
Yeah.
Rather than, if we're going to call ourselves a Christian, and recognizing that I'm speaking to another child of our Heavenly Father, then I'm going to think about what the impact of my words are going to be if I have any desire for them to be able to improve on this journey called life that we all struggle through.
Okay.
How often do you hear any minister put that as a standard of measurement over how we treat people, even people who we may disagree with vehemently. So, for example, none of us are responsible for our gender, our color, the demographics of the family we were born into, the country we were born into. We had nothing to do with that.
Mhm.
So recognizing that, the beauty of our Heavenly Father is he understands that that's the effect of sin. But that's why he goes to the other perspective and says, recognizing that reality as a community, like what we saw in Acts chapter 2 and Acts chapter 4,
Mhm.
we are actively engaged with the same generosity which God says he allows the sun to shine on the good and the bad alike. He's asking us, in spite of how difficult it is, to consciously make that a commitment with every single person that we come in contact with.
Mm.
And we're not asked to ask, do they deserve it or not? I want to ask you the question.
Yeah, right.
It occurred to me recently that everybody wants to go to heaven, right?
Right.
They don't like the alternative.
Of course.
And the promise is given that in heaven, he will wipe our tears. There'll be no more sorrow, no more crying,
Mm.
no more pain, right?
Mhm.
And then I asked myself the question, what is the source of the pain in our existence now?
Yeah.
And I came up with 4 reasons.
Okay.
Number 1, there's genetic stuff. I've got a good friend of mine he inherited an arrhythmia from his mom.
Mhm.
And if it'd been 10, 15 years ago, he'd be dead. But today, because of technology, he has a 5-pound pump in his chest
Mhm.
that and he walks around with batteries strapped to him, in which that 5-pound pump is now helping his heart pump that keeps him alive.
Mhm.
He had nothing to do with that. That's just bad genetics.
Okay.
So that's 1.
Okay.
2, we can see that another one would be how we treat people.
Mhm.
And there's all kinds of categories for that on how people are treated that inflicts pain.
Okay.
3, how we treat ourselves, self-abuse. I used to work at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Hawaii, and I found out that 60% of all health claims are lifestyle oriented.
Mm.
So if we were to change the way we eat and how we live, imagine healthcare costs dropping by 60%.
Okay.
Nobody talks about that. So
Yeah.
that would be another reason.
Mhm.
And the 4th is damage we do to the environment that has a negative impact on people. Places like Alabama, Mississippi, we saw Flint, Michigan,
Mhm.
in which environmental conditions are of such that's ruining poor people's lives, in which state officials are doing absolutely nothing to regulate or to correct.
Mm. 4 pains.
That's right. That's it. You can almost take anything else and put it in those 4 categories.
Okay.
So if we're going to follow the promise given by Moses in Deuteronomy 30 that says, I will circumcise your heart so that you will love me with all your heart and you will follow the counsel that I have given you. That's why I came back to the definition of conversion is the transformation of the heart in how we treat people. That's what we see in Acts chapter 2, when people came and sold what they had and shared with those in need, because their hearts had been transformed.
All right. You heard it, folks. Today, Dennis is offering free services. Everything that he has, as far as his presentation, is for free for those that are in need. Sign up today. What's wrong with that statement?
You're asking people to sign up to learn about the financial concepts that
And
that's free.
And he's going to give it to you for absolutely free if you need it. There's got to be something wrong with that statement. What is it?
Well, there's two things. First of all, what's true about it is I'm sharing information that is transformational.
Yes.
Now recognizing that I'm not a millionaire, and if you want me to teach you, then the other lesson I learned is, and I saw this in healthcare, is there has to be skin in the game for somebody to demonstrate that they're going to put in that effort and apply it to make it real.
Is that biblical? You got to have skin in the game, or is that is that a natural? You got to have skin in the game, or should it be? If I need it, though, what if I need it? Aren't you going to give it to me for free based off of what the Bible says?
Well, so from the perspective, if I need it, then I'm certainly going to do what I can if I don't have it to be able to provide a resource. But the other side of the coin, as it relates to work, the instructions were also given Israel that you were not to, quote unquote, pick everything clean off of your crops, but you were to leave some available so that the poor could come pick to meet their needs.
Okay. So
right.
So for all those poor people,
there's balance, right? There's balance.
Okay. There's balance. Okay. All right. All right. So I can say without a shadow of a doubt, if you are poor on Section 8, come to Dennis for free services, because he is offering his services are absolutely free.
So to come back full circle, in order for me to actually have my strategy work for someone, they have to have, and this is a really good point, they have to have been able to demonstrate discipline in how they manage their money, because if they can't, my strategy won't work.
Okay, fair enough. But do you get where I'm going with regards to there's a cost for everything?
I hear you loud and clear.
There's a cost for everything. You can't give everything out for free.
But
there's a limitation to giving.
And more importantly, what we're pointing out here, where you're going, is there's one thing to just entirely turn your back and not provide any resource at all or opportunity for someone to make a step ahead, versus being given an opportunity and then not doing your part to master it.
Okay.
We are differentiating between those two.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Sort of. It doesn't explain balance, and it doesn't explain the concept of balance and imbalance as it relates to giving. I do believe that people can give foolishly, for instance.
No doubt about it. And that's kind of what I'm saying, right? If I'm going to keep giving and somebody's not going to do their part to master it, then that's foolish giving.
Yeah. It alludes to the idea that there is a rhythm of understanding that I see across the board from conservative and liberal perspective. Let's say we're categorizing it like that under the context of the Bible, right? That just as much as I want everybody just as much as I want to give to the poor. I also understand that the poor, I believe it was Jesus Christ that said, the poor you have with you always. You're not going to get rid of
That.
poverty just because you give.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and although it's my obligation to give, there is a limitation to giving. That I can't give all that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give every cent. I can't even if I do have cents left, it is wise for me to make sure that I'm taking care of my legacy, because before the Bible says, a man leaves an inheritance for his children.
That's correct.
Um, so then everybody's trying to interpret what it really means to give to the poor, particularly poor who are embellished in sin, and poor who sometimes take advantage of the system. That's a big. This is a big. This is a bigger conversation, way bigger conversation when it comes to that. Is we're not just talking about giving to the poor. That's one thing, but you're talking about investing in. When you talk about government level, investing in systems that sometimes get taken advantage of, that cause populations to skew into dependency, would probably be the argument of a conservative. Right?
So I would, to your point, and and we all remember Ronald. Well, no, everybody doesn't, but I remember Ronald. Put it that way.
Ronald Reagan, right?
And who used to say that
trickle down politics.
Well, no, he was saying about the federal government that the federal government can, in effect, let me run the other way if the federal government is involved. So he would be the one I would point to as creating this environment as if there's not a role in government. But I think it's really important for everyone, for us all to remember that the reason why a safety net was established was because communities were not stepping up and doing their part.
Okay.
And I will also say that the reason for the ballooning federal government, which people are now learning with this administration, is because because states weren't doing their part to ensure that just common sense regulations to protect the community as a whole being implemented and administered. If that had been done, the federal government would not have even needed to step in. So what people are now experiencing, where they thought that they were independent of the federal government, and now they're finding out that they weren't independent after all, that they are dependent upon the federal government. And now we are hearing people wanting subsidies, like, for example, when we talk about the farmers. I watched the sugar industry in Hawaii disappear when the federal government stopped subsidizing, because protecting Hawaii's farmers, because of the European farmers being paid to grow sugar beets, without any regard to what the market rate was. And as a former German ambassador to Moscow personally told me, he said, Dennis, we created the unrest in Africa because we took the crops that we paid farmers to create to ensure that they had a good living and dumped it in the African markets, destroying their ability to grow, created political unrest, and created the migrant wave we saw in 2017. And he said, we should stop doing that. But if we do, there would be rioting in the streets in Europe.
This sounds way above my pay grade here. You got to deliver politics as an explanation.
We're just talking about simple economics here. And when this individual told me this, I was stunned, because I saw it happen in Hawaii. What I'm trying to say here is Is that the role of government? That opens up a whole nother question. And then when we bring it to the macro level and see, well, we don't want these people around us, when in fact, governments help create the problems.
I love this conversation. It definitely I'm not a political person in general. I don't like politics. I don't I understand on things on a social personal level, but once it starts going on that level there, I start thinking as a black man that it's out of my control. And you know what I mean? I
Totally.
because I don't feel like I have a voice personally.
But the one thing I can tell you though is that if I'm able to just bring it down to my experience of the people I touch, how willing am I to share what I have learned in order to make a difference in someone else's life, that I can consciously do on a day-to-day basis.
Amen to that. Yes. We are at the end of the interview, I guess. You have given a wealth of commentary on what you do, and particularly I am so intrigued by your way of thinking as it relates to, you clearly have a lot of biblical knowledge, and you clearly are a man of faith, and that is one thing that I admire and I always appreciate, is the different types of faith presentations that I'm able to experience through these interviews. I enjoyed it. I enjoy just listening to you. You are older than me. I'm a young black male listening to an older black male talk about life and politics. Most enjoyable experience. One of the more enjoyable conversations for sure. Just to sit back and listen to how you maneuver through this conversation has been a pleasurable experience for me personally. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for inviting me back, and I would even say that I have to tell you that I feel terribly blessed and privileged. The choices that my parents made that I've been able to build on.
Yeah.
And I know full and well that I've been given opportunities that most people are not. And I feel indebted because of it.
Yeah, I've got part 3 and part 4 interview already planned out. You just don't know it yet.
All right. I will look forward to continuing.
Yeah, I'm curious about your take on politics and spirituality, and I'm interested on your child you say you spent 27 years in Hawaii. I am so or 20 it was 20 or 27 years. So I'm interested in learning about that. So that's part 3 and part 4 for sure. If you're interested. So we'll get that set up. Thank you for your time. I'm not going to eat up too much time here. I got to shift gears anyways. I'm pretty sure you got other stuff to do too. So.
Well, thanks again. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Till next time. All right. Thank you, Dennis. Bye now.